Welcome, everyone. We're so grateful that you're here. Good afternoon. And we are excited to have a forum today with our interim president, Saul Jimenez Sandoval, and members of our cabinet. My name is Brian Barrett. I'm a professor of Deaf Studies and the director for our Center for Faculty Excellence. And I will help moderate the question and answer session this afternoon as part of the forum. Members of our cabinet here today include our interim provost, Zhuaning Fu, vice president for administration, and Chief Financial Officer, Debbie Astone, Interim Vice President for Student Affairs and Enrollment Management, Carolyn Kuhn, Vice President for Information Technology and Chief Information Officer, Orlando Leone, and the Director of Athletics, Terry Toomey. And our entire cabinet is happy to answer questions you may have, but first let me review how you can participate. So for this event, all of our members are on mute. However, we do encourage you to submit your questions via the Q&A button. Type your questions there and I will do my best to read them aloud, as many as time permits. Additionally, resources will be placed in the chat as we go through the forum. So faculty and staff, please go ahead and submit questions and we will begin shortly. But before we do that, it's my pleasure to turn the event over to our president, Saul Jimenez Sandoval, to lead us in a moment of silence and offer some opening remarks. President?
Thank you, Brian. I want to begin with the land acknowledgement. We are in Fresno, California, on the traditional territories of the Yokut, Miwok, and Mono peoples. And I would also like to ask for a moment of silence, considering the recent and past events that have impacted our communities, especially our African American and Asian American communities. May this moment of silence reinforce our resolve to empower our students for success, so that they may be the agents of change our world today needs. So at this point, let's provide a moment of silence, please. With that, let's start this this forum, and I'm, as always, happy to be here and happy to serve in this position, happy to serve you and our university and our students and our community as well, in our resolve to keep going on with this great mission of ours to really empower our students for success. Brian, let's start the forum, please.
Thank you, President. And I would also like to acknowledge we do have our Fresno State Legal Counsel, Daryl Ham, here. So thank you, Daryl, for being here as well. The first question is in regards to the CDC 3-foot spacing between students in the classroom. Is that something that we will be adhering to in fall of 2021?
I know that both the Provost and Vice President Astone have been really involved in keeping up with the CDC, keeping up with Sacramento, and also keeping up with our local county health officials, and then of course in communicating with our chancellor's office as well. And I know that they have some ideas about this, so I'll ask either the provost or Vice President Astone to please elaborate on the spacing issue specifically.
Well, I can begin and then defer to Provost Fu. Good question, thank you. The CDC guidance right now for the 3-foot is not applicable to higher ed. We are anticipating that later this month we will receive further guidance from the California Department of Public Health. Right now, the 6 feet of social distancing is still in place, but as we get additional guidance from the governor in June relative to the removal of the tiers, the additional, of course, increase in population that is getting the vaccine, and as we plan for the fall, we have plans for both the 6-foot social distancing in our classrooms and office areas, but the 3-foot distancing pretty much takes us back to status quo, to our state fire marshal occupancy limits. And we might need to make some adjustments in our large tiered fixed classrooms. But again, more will come on that, as the president mentioned, as we get additional guidance from California Department of Public Health, which are the guidelines that we need to follow. And we are staying in very close contact with our local public health officials. We continue to meet with them every 2 weeks, and they have been so supportive and helpful, especially when we've had some events this spring, in particular for our music department, where we have been able to work out safe situations for our students. recognizing that there are some activities that we did need to move forward with. So right now, the CDC 3-foot guidance does not apply, but we anticipate that we will get additional flexibility and guidance here in the next month or two.
Thank you, Debbie. I don't have further additions.
Thank you. The next question is in regards to the modes or possible modes of instruction for the fall semester. Are there any decisions that have been made in regards to that?
I know for a fact that the provost has been working closely with the deans on this. And I know that he has requested a list of classes that are face-to-face, as well as a list of classes that would be virtual. So I'm going to ask Provost Fu to elaborate on that for us.
Thank you, President. The academic affairs has worked closely with faculty chairs and deans to ask for a list of face-to-face or in-person classes that are essential for a mission of education and student success. And we propose those in-person classes around 5 priorities about accreditation requirement, the nature of the course and the student learning outcome, and for student success, engagement, and graduate student research. And about a month ago, we received this list for proposed in-person classes from all academic units. They are about 65% of what we offered in fall 2019 and prior to COVID. Monday last week, not this coming past this Monday, but Monday last week, the Senate passed extension of APM 206 to relax the requirement for training and review of online courses. So that made it possible for us to relax the schedule we published 3 weeks ago for students to register fall 2021 classes. And last week, we discussed with department chairs and faculty to schedule, if they think is appropriate, the 35% of the courses to be online or virtual. Now, let me clarify one more time here. We received the proposal with 65% of our fall 2021 classes as face-to-face. Now we asked faculty and the department chairs to turn the 35% to online or virtual if they think that's appropriate. And some departments, some disciplines actually, in fact, wanted to increase the in-person class component from their schedules. That is also encouraged. And this moment, as Vice President Debbie Easton just shared with us, we are waiting for the state, county, and the Chancellor's Office guidelines. We're holding steady with our current schedule with the proportion of about 65% or maybe a little bit higher as face-to-face. Once we have the clear guidelines, and we may need to further revise this schedule, it could go up or it could go down by what safety measures we have to place, such as the social distance. So we have a plan, and we are in a very good place, but we are ready to make adjustment as needed with the safety measures in mind and with the students' learning outcome, quality education, integrity of degree in mind.
Thank you, Provost. The next question is somewhat related. When will the results of the faculty survey that went out from OIE, Office of Institutional Effectiveness, on the teaching preferences as well as the future of online teaching be shared with everyone?
Provost Fu, do you have those results? I know that we've discussed them in the past, and were you planning to distribute them to the faculty?
Yes, and the survey is closed, and I do not have the most recent development where that is. OIE has been working for a dashboard to display and interpret with the interactive features on this survey. And I think we are almost ready. And OIE has been working with the Senate leadership to disseminate those survey results. Apparently and definitely, we make this available to faculty who are interested in reviewing those survey results.
Great. So we'll distribute those pretty soon then. Thank you for the question.
The next question is regarding staff who have successfully worked remotely for the last year. And if they do not directly interact with students, will there be an option for a more flexible work schedule once campus is repopulated?
Yeah, I'll start off by saying, and then I'll provide the space to Vice President Haystone to also provide some of her thoughts, that we really need to think about how we can best serve our students in the fall. We have seen some pretty convincing information that especially our freshmen have really suffered pretty strongly. Fall 2020 provided us with the insights of how our freshmen did, and across the board, from what I understand from OIE and from Dr. Fu as well, every single category of GPA suffered in fall 2020. That means that the experience of being on campus, the experience of the educational journey that we have is important. The university degree is not a degree that is just a piece of paper or is not just knowledge. It's valuable because we gather together. It's valuable because we come together and we get to meet each other and we get to interact with each other as well. Of course, we have to consider the safety issues in all of this. I absolutely am focused on the safety of everyone. But at the same time, we also have to think that a degree from Fresno State represents an experience. And it's a journey of discovery, and it's a journey of becoming yourself, of figuring out your place in society and figuring out what it is that you will do in the future as a professional. And we provide our students with that information. We provide our students with the wherewithal, with the tools in order for them to, at the end, have that eureka moment, that aha moment in which they say, I'm going to become this. And more than ever, throughout this pandemic, we've realized that the experience of being human, it's the experience of being with each other, collaborating with each other, exchanging ideas with each other. And for that, I'd like to a little bit shift the focus on what the mission of the institution is, and that is to empower every student for success, because everything and anything we do at the university has an immediate ripple effect on the entire community, on entire families, on entire groups of people. So we have that responsibility moving forward as well. I do understand that it's comfortable to work from home on the one hand. On the other hand, I do understand that there are some pretty serious issues as far as safety and as far as COVID-19 are concerned, et cetera. We are trying our best to mitigate any and all of the dangers of COVID-19, and we are trying our best as well to maintain a proper protocol at the university moving forward. So with all of this, I have also spoken to chancellors and presidents across the US just to see how they're doing it, just to see how other systems are doing it. I was on the phone the other day with the chancellor of the University of Nebraska, Lincoln. He's had his faculty and the students at 60% throughout all of this time without a single incident, because they have maintained very strong, strict protocols of the mask, of the hygiene of the hands, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm pretty confident, especially now that the county has gone from the red to the orange, that we are going to be able to repopulate in a safe manner. If there are issues that we need to address, by all means, we will address them, whether they be issues with safety or whether they be issues with health or whatever else. So let us know about that. But I'm going to provide the space to Vice President Aistone to provide us with a little bit more background on this.
Thank you, President, and thank you for the question. And we recognize that there are some staff positions that working remotely may be more conducive. And I know we've all learned a lot from this pandemic about different operational efficiencies and abilities to work remotely. But I think one of the, as the president mentioned, I think one of the hallmarks of our campus have been that personal touch, to have that sense of community. But we are working with each of our cabinet colleagues as part of the repopulation plan. Of course, we will be sending out a communication this week to managers with the expectations for managers going forward as far as the repopulation this summer. We are looking at a staggered approach because we realize that we all have different schedules or have maybe gotten into different routines or have childcare or other needs that we need to think about as part of the repopulation. But it's very important that the managers are back on campus first. And then we want to be able, of course, to welcome our staff back in a safe manner. We recognize that there are some staff positions where working remotely, where there may not be the need for personal contact on campus. But again, that is an operational decision that each cabinet member can evaluate after we repopulate and look at some of those decisions and maybe office occupancy parameters. But we are very mindful too that there could be potentially perceived equity issues amongst certain positions. So we are really trying to almost disconnect the repopulation with the telecommuting needs, because we've always had a telecommuting policy that was in place actually before the pandemic. And I think as we repopulate our campus, each divisional area will be able to assess if there are some positions, maybe in technology services and maybe in other areas where working remotely will be just fine and we can work out a plan. But we want to do that with, of course, looking at the different positions and equity issues to make sure that these decisions are being made fairly and that they don't jeopardize any of the operational needs within each of our divisional areas. So please know that is definitely a discussion point, but right now our focus is to plan on the repopulation of our managers and staff and faculty, and so that we can welcome our students in a safe way. And there'll be more information coming out shortly after the communication goes to the managers. Then we know that many of our staff are looking for that same guidance and information. We hope to have that out within the next couple of weeks. But we are looking at a staggered approach, recognizing that we want to give everyone as much time as possible to be ready in August. I hope that answers the question, President.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And just a reminder to everyone here, if you could please use the Q&A feature for your questions, that would be very helpful. It is challenging for me as a moderator to also pay attention to questions put in the chat. Additionally, I know that people are anxious for me to get to their questions. There is a long list of questions. I'm trying to clump them by themes and getting to them as quickly as possible. So your patience is greatly appreciated. Building upon the safe return to campus, and I appreciate Vice President Aistone and the President's comments, can anyone please speak to the notion of universities requiring vaccinations to return to school? There are several across the country, as we know. Rutgers is one of them, and they have a commitment to return more than 71,000 students to campus. And why isn't the Cal State requiring vaccinations?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brian. And it is a question that we are also exploring on a daily, weekly basis, because we know that first and foremost, safety has to be our #1 North Star that really guides us through all of this process. And that is one of the fundamental components. From what I understand, and I know that Daryl Ham, our university counsel, is also on here, and I'll give him the space to also answer this. The emergency use authorization precludes our state institutions from requiring this vaccination. Rutgers is in New Jersey. New Jersey has different state laws that are allowing it to do that as well. Nevertheless, we are still exploring all possibilities for fall 2021, and it includes requiring the vaccination as well. This is still in the works right now. We don't know what the outcome will be, but we are exploring that possibility. Daryl, would you like to elaborate a little bit on that, please?
Sure, no problem at all. I think you basically hit the major, excuse me, the major highlights appropriately. What we're facing, and the question is a good one. We have seen some other universities throughout the country that have said they are going to mandate. In specific, New Jersey, and looking at Rutgers, they have a specific state law that where the COVID vaccine is on a list of various vaccines, which they, by state law, can impose a mandate. So they have the extra kind of legal protection, if you will, of a state law to impose a mandate for vaccine, which we in California do not have. If the state legislator in California chose to act to impose or develop a similar law and add the COVID vaccines in, that could be one solution as well. Just for a moment, the concept of the emergency authorization is that the person has a right to refuse it because it's emergency, and the FDA has labeled all of the current COVID vaccines as emergency vaccines. And part of the label of emergency vaccines is that the FDA explicitly states that the individual has an absolute right to refuse the vaccine. We've been debating amongst attorneys and counsel, what does that mean to have an emergency authorization where you are allowed to refuse it? And the concern has arisen as to, well, we don't want to be in a position where we are denying public education, public employment on requiring a person to take a vaccine that even the FDA has not approved completely and is only approved on an emergency basis. And that some of the schools that are imposing this are private. Some of the schools that are doing this, and so they don't have that same obligation. And some of the schools like Rutgers have state laws that protect them. Some states are going completely the opposite way and enacting laws saying that the university cannot mandate any kind of vaccine. So this is an issue that's really all over the legal map. We are looking at the possibility, if the emergency authorization is approved before the fall, we are looking at the possibility of, at that point in time, considering a mandate at that time if the emergency authorization is lifted and it's just a regular approval. That is something that could be in the works and could be in place by the fall. We don't know. The FDA has not given an explicit timetable on when they will lift the emergency authorization and give full approval for any of the vaccines as of yet, but we're monitoring that, and so it remains a possibility.
Thank you, Daryl.
I'm going to do my best to combine several questions and comments at once that are focused on the restrictions that there might be in the fall in terms of how many people can be on campus at once, how we're planning to handle events for our students, including campus tours or various organizations and clubs. Additionally, will employees, staff, and faculty have to wear masks? And if they are required to wear masks like we currently are if we're on campus, but they are not doing so, how does someone address that when they see someone who's not following the appropriate protocols on campus that we have currently?
Thank you, Brian. I'll begin and then I'll give the forum over to Vice President Easton for the staff component of it. If there is someone within your building who is either your colleague, if you're a professor and it's another colleague, or if you're a staff and it's another colleague, you should tell the chair about it. I think that's the first point of contact right there. If nothing happens, then also inform the dean about this, because we will enforce this and we will implement a system through which we have to abide by the mask wearing. That is that is not optional in the least. If I am in a public space, I always wear the mask because that's what we're supposed to do. I'm protecting my staff. If I leave my office, the moment I leave my office, even to get water, I put on my mask. My staff never see me without a mask on the hall. They never see me without a mask in the fourth floor, nor do they see me without a mask even on campus. I've taken walks before going through the campus. I have my mask on just because I don't know whom I'm going to come across at that point. So if this is an issue, we need to know about it, and we will enforce it through various ways. I'd like to ask Vice President Aistone to also respond the rest of the question.
Great. Thank you, President. And Brian, please help me if I miss any component of the question, and thank you. So we do not anticipate, again, a lot depends what we hear from the governor on June 15th, also what guidelines we may still receive from the California Department of Public Health. But we are not, that there could be still some capacity restrictions depending upon the number of vaccinations. So right now we are, excuse me, I'm just going to get some water. My apologies. We do not know, for example, if we will be able to open the student rec center, but maybe with a 50% restriction or a 60% restriction. We do not know that yet. But that will be part of our planning as we move forward. And once we receive those updated guidelines. I never cough, so I'm so sorry. In regards to events, for events that might be held after June 15th, Amy Luna, our emergency preparedness manager, is tracking those requests, and we will get information and guidance back to you as soon as we know more. We have worked together to approve some events this spring. And we are following, of course, the California Department of Health guidelines for the blueprint that came out in early April. So we are still following those, and we'll adjust accordingly in June when we know more. But right now we are following the blueprint. And as the president mentioned, we did go into the orange tier today. So that is very good news from the red tier. Yes, masks we expect to continue to be required in the fall. And thank you for the president's leadership and role modeling that we are required to wear masks. We have supplies in all of our campus buildings. We will continue to provide those supplies in the fall, whether it be hand sanitizing gel, masks, disinfecting wipes, whatever those supplies are, we will continue to provide through our facilities management team. And I know we are all anxious to, again, have events back on campus, both in person and outdoors, and feel comfortable that, of course, we're proceeding in the right direction. And we will provide more information about events after June 15th. In the meantime, though, if you have questions, please contact Amy Luna, and we'll make sure at least to get your event on our radar so that we can provide you guidance as soon as possible. So, Brian, I hope that covered all of the items, or please let me know if I missed anything.
I believe it did. Thank you all for that. And related to repopulation and on-campus employees, students, staff, can you explain, there has been a lot of work done with the HVAC system. Can you explain what work has been done? But additionally, how are we mitigating the spread of the virus from older buildings that maybe don't have that updated HVAC system? Because most building windows cannot be opened to help ventilate the rooms.
Yeah, I know that we are working on a communication right now to the whole campus community that lets them know specifically what steps we have taken with the HVAC, with filters, what steps we've taken as well with ionizers in order to kill the virus if the virus is present as well. And I also know that Vice President Aistone has been very good about seeing what needs to happen in the older buildings. I'm going to ask her to speak in a moment, but before that, the fact that people are not wearing masks, that concerns me. It could be one of two things, right? They know the information, and therefore we need to reinforce the mask mandate on the one hand, or on the other hand, maybe they don't know the information, and I'm going to give them, the benefit of the doubt. So I'm going to ask both Provost Fu and Vice President Aystone to see how the task force can post informational signs about where we have to wear masks. If it's the hall, let's put, let's let our faculty, staff, and students know you need to be wearing a mask in this area as well. Just a small informational campaign on just posting mask wearing required in this space, I think would be good on the one hand. On the other hand, we can also send some reminders to the campus community about the areas that are required to have the mask wearing mandate. So with that, Vice President Aystone, can you please address the rest of the question, please?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the question. And thank you to Shirley Armbruster and our University Communications team. And as the president mentioned, we will be sending out a communication this week with more detailed information about what we have been doing, not just now, but what we have been doing, especially our building engineers in looking at our mechanical systems in every building. And so a big thank you to our facilities management team and our building engineers. We have, our team has gone on in and replaced all of our filters with MERV 13 grade filters. We are also going to be replacing those on a consistent basis as part of our disinfecting and cleaning routine. The consistent flushing of our buildings, bringing in outside air, even though many of our newer buildings do not have windows that are operable, but we are still, through our mechanical systems, able to bring in outside air and flush our buildings every day. We are following guidance that we have been given and good industry practice from both our Chancellor's Office Mechanical Review Board, who have mechanical and electrical engineers who are guiding all of the CSU campuses on best practices and industry guidelines. And we are also fortunate to have our central plant utility development team on campus as well. So whenever we've needed additional guidance or expertise, we've got an extension of our team available as well, and our consultants. So please know we are doing everything to keep our campus safe, even in our buildings that have the older HVAC equipment. We are following the CDC and California Department of Health guidelines. Our team has been on this from the onset and has been working really behind the scenes to ensure that we have been keeping our buildings safe that are currently occupied and getting ready to welcome everyone back in the fall. And these practices will continue in the fall. We are ensuring that our facilities department has all the necessary supplies and equipment. One of the challenges has been just in some cases about securing items such as an air scrubber. And so as I mentioned to the president the other day, as soon as these types of items become available, we are purchasing them so that we can have them in strategic areas like we do right now over in athletics and in our childcare centers. And we're going to be procuring as much equipment as we need to have available. This will not be a departmental expense. This is a centralized expense that we are providing whatever equipment, filters, resources, supplies to continue to keep our campus safe. But the communication this week will have much more detail, but I just want to say thank you to our facilities team for being so diligent, because they've already gone through every single building.
And we're very grateful for that team and their hard work, their continuing efforts to keep us safe. So thank you for that. The next question is in regards to communication plans and communication being sent out to faculty and staff, which frequently is confusing or contradictory in nature from various administrators who don't always seem to be coordinating their messages with one another or the repopulation task force. For example, chairs have been asked to make sense of these messages that often come with a request to provide information in a very short time frame. So how can we streamline and coordinate the messaging around repopulation so we minimize this kind of confusion?
I appreciate that question, and I'll start off by saying that these times of COVID have really taught us that communication is key, and communication is also constant as well. It's not a one-time deal. We have to keep it up, and we have to maintain it throughout the process. At the same time, these times of COVID have also taught us that information changes on a daily basis, and at times we also need to ask of our chairs and ask of our deans and ask of each other to shift on the moment and to provide as much information as possible in a short notice as well. So for that, I thank you for your patience. I know that it's not easy, and I know that it's been difficult and trying. At the end of the day, though, I want to think and I want to consider that we're here for that bigger reason, right? Which is the student success that I mentioned at the beginning. We will do everything we can within our power, with very sincere, heartfelt intentions on how to streamline communication throughout this process. I know that the provost sent out a communication. I know that there was a little bit of confusion about that, but then he followed up with the chairs, specifically directly with the chairs, in order to clarify some of that. I'm going to ask Provost Fu to elaborate on that, so that we're all hearing it from him directly.
Thank you, President. Most of the communications I sent out was about course planning. And for course planning, we do experience a lot of changes at a very fast pace. And to follow our university structure, my communication was going to the deans first. The deans disseminate to chairs and faculty. And this is the way that we have always followed, and to ensure that all the relevant offices and office holders and faculty and deans and associate deans know and how to work with their colleagues to get the job done. But sometimes when the message comes from my office to deans, and then from deans to department offices, and interpretation could change. I have learned about those changes and interpretations. We also know that from different disciplines and from different groups of our university community, people have different perspectives on how we should open the fall semester. So oftentimes the same message could be interpreted slightly differently by what is read from between the lines. And last week, for example, I sent a message to deans and asked them to work with chairs and faculty to change schedule if needed, to move the courses that are not proposed as in-person courses to virtual or online, if faculty and chairs see as appropriate. And then the message was interpreted by some chairs as we have to turn all of them online or virtual. And that was not intended, but that was interpreted that way. When I learned of this possibly misunderstanding or miscommunication, I followed with my message to chairs directly, and with the message I sent to deans, trying to clarify what was being asked. Then after that, I learned that some of the chairs wanted to increase the in-person course list. And they told me when they were first asked to submit the list of in-person courses, they turned in a list of tentative plan. Now with changes on the ground and the improvement of vaccination, improvement of the pandemic situation, they feel that they can offer more courses in person. So they ask, your message didn't say, can we add to the face-to-face list? And I welcome those questions because they helps me and helps all of us to improve our work. Yes, if faculty and chairs wanted to add to face-to-face courses, of course that is a possibility. The message that went out from my office didn't say you cannot add to it, and it indicated that we want to keep what we have. And it doesn't say you cannot add to it. It doesn't say the 35%, the flip side of 65% will have to be all turned to online. So I welcome those these comments and questions about perceived lack of clarity, because that will help me to improve my work and helps me to improve the communication. And we know that not all the disciplines, departments, and colleges have the same need or same priority for offering their courses in a specific teaching modality. And if you have any specific requests, any specific suggestions, I would strongly encourage you to reach out to your chairs and deans or reach out to me directly. I can promise that I will act really fast and quickly and promptly help clarifying your questions, help you better plan our fall schedules.
Thank you, Provost. In regards to the fall schedules, student registration is now going on, assuming full classroom capacity. So if we have a COVID distancing requirement in classrooms, will we be able to handle all of the registered students? And if not, what is plan B for those in-person classes for either due to capacity or students who are unable to attend due to health reasons, et cetera? How will that be handled?
So I'll start and then I'll provide Provost Fu the space. Like the Provost said, we are planning for 65% face-to-face, 35% virtual. That in essence provides an answer to the question. That 35% should provide us the flexibility with which to accommodate those students who, for various COVID-19 related reasons, need to stay at home. If there is a class that has the possibility of doing both face-to-face and remote learning or virtual learning, then we are also prepared for that. Brian just took me to see the other day the HyFlex classroom. I was able to play around with the with the equipment. It's a fairly simple, approachable type of matrix that you have there, and the students at home can actually participate by just simply speaking into their computer or into their device, and we can all hear it in the classroom as well. So it's not cumbersome. It's not something that I'm going to have to be, I taught in the classroom for almost 15 years. So I envision myself there teaching to the students in class while at the same time also monitoring those students who were tuning in from home. So it's pretty streamlined. The technology is incredible, and the support has been there from Brian and his group as well. I know I've seen some of the videos that the Center for Faculty Excellence has pushed out, and they're pretty good as well. So given all of this, I feel that we are fairly prepared for fall 2021. Provost Fu, what can you add to that?
I can add this, that when we were preparing our fall 2021 course schedule, we didn't have pertinent knowledge and information from the guidance and then come from the state and the chancellor's office because of the changing situation of the pandemic. So we started with the default of fall 2019 course modality, which means that most of the courses as scheduled in fall 2019 were in person. And this made it easy to some extent that when we have to reduce it, we can simply turn the courses to virtual online. Because if we start with majority of courses virtual, it is very difficult or impossible to turn those courses back in person, because each course in person would need a time and classroom, and the time and classroom will have to avoid a conflict. It's very difficult to schedule like that. Now, with the default of schedule as in person, if the 65% we currently schedule as in-person courses cannot be scheduled because of safety procedures and guidelines. For example, if we have to keep 6 feet social distance, and we won't be able to offer the same number of in-person classes, and we will have to turn some of these courses back to online or virtual. And we have had 2 semesters teaching the courses like that. Faculty, staff, and students are prepared. It is relatively easy and less confusing than turn the courses back the other way around. If courses are scheduled on as a virtual without classroom, it is a lot more difficult to turn the other way. So the answer to that question is that it depends on what are the actual final guidelines from the State Department of Health, and what is the social distance we have to keep. If we don't need to keep any social distance, all these in-person classes will be held as we held them in fall 2019 and prior. If we have to keep a certain social distance and the class size has to be reduced, we'll have to reduce the class sizes. That might mean that not all these in-person classes would have a room, because if one class is split into 2, we need to double the space. Then the rest of the classes will have to be turned back to virtual or online. So that's the current plan, because the difficulty of doing that is smaller than turning the online courses back to in-person on campus. So this is our current plan, and we are holding this till we know what are the final operational guidelines from the state, from the county, and from the chancellor's office.
Thank you, Provost Fu. What effects have been made to make the staff gathering places, such as open offices and small meeting rooms, safe during COVID?
Yeah, so I have to say that we have implemented a pretty strong set of protocols throughout. And with that said, I have not stopped coming to the office. None of us have stopped coming to the office. So throughout this time, we have followed very strict protocols. Like I mentioned before, if I leave my office, I put on a mask. We don't gather in groups either. We don't use common spaces for eating. We eat, either outside. I sometimes, have the time to take a walk. Then I will take my lunch outside and I will eat it outside, or I will eat it in my office as well. So these are very common practices that we have all implemented throughout. And what I'm hearing, from this question is again, the need for information, and the need for information that we have to provide our campus community as far as what the protocol will be once we repopulate in fall 2021, or once we bring more people to campus in fall 2021. What do we do about common spaces? What do we do about the basics of interacting with each other as well? So we will absolutely take down that information, and we will send out information on this, and then again provide signage to our campus community as far as what the proper protocols are. So thank you for that.
Thank you, President. Are we allowed to ask our staff if they have had the vaccine or not? And if they have not, can we inquire to how big their bubble or interactions with others are? Additionally, will regular COVID testing be required for on-campus employees, and how will that be handled?
So I'll answer the first question first. We are not allowed to ask our staff if they have had the vaccine, nor are we allowed to ask our staff how big their bubble or how small their bubble is, because these are both confidential. This is confidential information. Our staff is not required to disclose any part of their medical history to anybody, for that matter. So that would be a no. As far as testing is concerned, we have had a volunteer testing program throughout all of this process, and we have required testing for certain populations. We require testing, for example, from our athletes to get tested on a regular basis. Vice President Asen, would you like to say a little bit more about that? Required testing?
Maybe just to add, and I know Daryl Ham can also help us here, But I think we are allowed to ask either an employee or a student if they have been vaccinated, if it means, if it has to do, if they've been exposed as a close contact, and whether they are still required to quarantine or isolate or test. And so I believe under those circumstances and again, done in a confidential way through our EH&S staff that handles the contact tracing, that we are allowed to ask for it under those circumstances, because it may have to do with someone if they had been exposed. And if they have been vaccinated, then the protocols will be a little bit differently for them depending upon that. But Daryl, I'll let you confirm if I stated that correctly.
I think it's generally correct. I think I put a qualifier or a caveat on that. We generally are not allowing the supervisor to ask that question. So I just in case people are confused about that, not that you were saying that, but just to make sure people understand that when Vice President Acestone is talking about the concept of asking about this because of the need to potentially quarantine or whatever, we at the Office of General Counsel have concluded that there is a right to ask about the vaccination status. The devil's in the details as to who asked the question and where the records kept, and then ultimately the right to have EH&S if there's contact tracing, quarantine needed to be done. So our concept is that yes, we have a right to ask for it, because if a quarantine situation arises, then the ability to be able to know who is vaccinated, who isn't, will be critical, because if you've been vaccinated, you will not have to quarantine, for example. But if you have not been vaccinated, you would need to quarantine. So that's kind of the rationale behind it. And the president was correct that it's basically deemed as medical information. And there are state laws, federal laws with regards to the privacy of the medical information. So that's why we can't just directly have supervisors or others ask, because there's a privacy issue there. But we are concluding that there is a right to ask about it, but we'll be developing protocols, as will all other campuses, for how we gather that information and retain it.
Thank you, Daryl.
Thank you, everyone, so much. What are the updates about travel after June 30th? So will we be able to go to conferences, workshops, professional development, et cetera, both national and international in 2021-22?
Yeah, and there's going to be communication on this as well, coming out pretty soon. Yesterday, Monday morning, I had a pretty good discussion with the cabinet about this. The restrictions will be relaxed, and travel will be done based on the jurisdiction that each of the vice presidents and the provosts have within their divisions. Each of them will be able to determine whether the travel is warranted and whether the travel is promoting, our educational mission as well. As of now, as you understand that any travel is banned, but at the same time, the president has the right to say, this is a special occasion, therefore we are sending this student to Switzerland, to conduct research in physics, or whatever it might be. That was one of the cases that I approved recently. But come June 30th, we will then have the ability to have each of the vice presidents and the provost determine which travel will be conducive to research, will be conducive to student success, and then they will be approved within each of the divisions.
Thank you, President Jimenez-Sandoval. Have we explored Arizona University for COVID-19? For example, they have their students start the semester virtually for the first 2 weeks. And then after that, they have in-person classes. And then at the end of the semester, they return virtual for 2 weeks to conclude the semester. And the model allows a little opportunity and flexibility for people who may be sick when they return to the community to become well. And then also as they transition back to perhaps where they live for the break or for summer.
Yeah, actually, I reached out to the chancellor there, and I wanted to know more about that. And I'll ask both the provost and Vice President Asun to see if the task force has explored this. But my understanding is that the University of Arizona has a pretty large amount of the students who live on campus. It's sort of like a self-sustaining, ecosystem that they have there. We do not have that here at Fresno State. If we were to begin 2 weeks virtually at the beginning of the semester, it doesn't mean that our students will keep to each other or will keep to the campus community. It will just simply mean that they're virtual, and that's really it, right? We're not able to create a pod or to create a bubble or to create, a sort of like underlined a focus on how our students are only interacting with each other within this university community. So for that reason, they're going in that direction. But I'd like to ask both the provost and Vice President Asun to see what, if anything, the task force has considered as far as this model is concerned.
President, the task force, we did not consider this particular model, but we, of course, did use some of that strategy this semester, the spring semester, where we started the semester virtually before returning to any in-person instruction. And think that as, again, things are evolving and changing, and as we, again, have more folks that are getting vaccinated and the safety within our communities is continuing to improve. We do feel that it is important to kind of resume operations as closely as possible to where we were in fall of 19. And our residential housing area, and a big shout out to Erin Boley and her team. We've continued to remain open and supporting students. Our occupancy this semester was roughly about 200 with our residential staff. But we were also able to accommodate students who needed to quarantine or isolate, and also help earlier on to provide support for our student athletes. And going forward, we are going to have a plan. And again, we are waiting for more specific guidance, but we do have a plan so that we can start to repopulate our Fresno State housing at a significant level for the fall to support our students. And we have been requiring, as all of you know, offering voluntary monthly testing for our campus community that has been on campus, but we have made that a requirement for our students living in the residence halls. And then, as Terry Toomey has been leading, really appreciate Terry and his team, that our student athletes are getting tested 3 times a week. So all of these various efforts have really come into play in order to keep especially our on-campus student population and campus population safe during this time. And some campuses may require entrance testing in the fall. What kind of combination of vaccination and testing we may be looking at will all be part of these guidelines from the California Department of Public Health. And I will just say that whichever guidance we are given, we are ready to implement accordingly. And I know we're working with Daryl and Office of General Counsel on, should we require vaccinations of our students living in the residence halls? And if not, then what kind of weekly testing or other testing may be required? Terry is getting guidance from the Mountain West Conference and the NC2A on vaccination requirements for student athletes, anything that is not necessarily a required student activity. So a lot of this is emerging. We're getting new information every day, and we will endeavor to continue to communicate that information, but also help to consolidate it, because there is a lot of information coming our way on a daily basis. And we want to make sure that our campus community has the opportunity to have that information as well. So we'll continue to work on that. And we are working closely with University Communications on ensuring that we have weekly communications coming out to our campus community on various topic areas.
Yeah, and I'll add to that the reason why we chose the 2 weeks at the beginning of the semester was specific to the potential cases that we might have seen after the holidays. In the case of the fall, there isn't a major holiday right before we come back to school. So that's why I think the task force has not considered that. Provost Fu, would you like to say something about that?
Yeah, I think I appreciate the question, and thank the faculty for this suggestion. But the situations are very different between this current semester and the fall semester. We know that when we delayed the in-person classes at the beginning of this current semester, the scheduled in-person classes literally delayed, didn't do anything, because those courses are lab classes and require in-person presence to conduct the class to reach the highest possible level of learning outcome. And so the class were just delayed, started late. In a way, we lost some time, although the faculty assigned different assignments the students can work on virtually. It's not the same as the full semester in-person lab work. And coming to the fall, and if we schedule all our classes like that, and that will significantly increase faculty workload, because all faculty have to prepare two teaching modalities. One is the online virtual at the beginning of the class, then come back to in-person, and the end of the class, they have to go back to different teaching modality. So that is a huge challenge if we do it to all our classes. So again, the situation is fast developing. And we just learned today that the Fresno County has upgraded to the orange tier. And by mid-June, these tiers will be gone. And by mid-August, when we are ready to open the fall semester, I'm pretty sure that we will be facing a very different situation. We all hope that's a much better situation than we are today. So by that time, probably the need to offer classes virtually for safety reasons will be significantly reduced. But we are watching the development of the situation, and we also recognize that our university is very diverse and comprehensive in forms of the programs and the classes and the disciplines we have. Each one of them, it could be different, and not all of them can be successfully taught in person, but some can. So we do have a diversity here in many different ways, and we can look at those different situations individually probably, but now it is difficult for us to say all the university classes will start this way or start that way, because there's a lot of other considerations we have to include when we make a decision like that.
Thank you, everyone. Some faculty may have trouble teaching with masks on. Do we have a strategy to handle this type of situation? And can faculty apply to teach online? Additionally, what if department chairs are making decisions without the input from faculty members? How should they deal with that?
I would say that we could provide other protective equipment, personal protective equipment to the faculty that is not a mask. I know that the shield, the face shield is also very useful. I know that in your field specifically, Brian, you cannot use a mask in signing, right? So in this case, I think what we need to know right now is what are the issues and how can we resolve them? If you're reaching out to your department chair and you're not receiving the right type of answers, then reach out to your dean. If that is not resolved, then reach out to the provost as well. The provost, as you can see, is fully on on all of this. We are all fully invested with everything we've got to make the fall 2021 as best as possible for everyone. We care deeply for our faculty, we care deeply for our staff, and we also care deeply for our students, because this is why we're here. This is the future of our region. So if there's an issue that's happening, and if you have encountered a negative answer on one level, go to the next level, and then pretty soon reach out to me as well. We are all here in order to resolve the issues effectively, and we all have these degrees, right? That's why we're here, and I'm sure that we'll be able to resolve them appropriately as well. So I encourage you to reach out to your dean, to your provost, to me, if this is not working. But I'm pretty sure that something will be resolved along the line.
Thank you. And I see Vice President Astone also indicate the face shield as a possibility. And in regards to another related question, that would be very effective in a larger lecture classroom in terms of trying to project your voice, which might be very difficult to do if you had the normal face covering.
Right.
So there are some opportunities to explore other options. The next question has to go with our transition to DocuSign, and would it be possible to please push for a paperless campus when we return in the fall?
So I'll start off by saying that as you know, I come from arts and humanities, and within arts and humanities, I have a good friend by the name of Chris Golston, who championed his department to get rid of the photocopier. Based on that revenue that they received, and they were able then to distribute it to the faculty for conferences and everything else, right, and for students as well. So I do understand the great need that we have to go paperless. We do have the DocuSign. I'll speak to Vice President Astone about this. We have both championed right from the beginning the Sustainability Club, which is proposing this holistic approach to sustainability, everything from the environment, which includes paperless, to social justice, to business, to history, to everything in between. So that's one of the initiatives that I have, and that's one of the initiatives that I would like to develop as well. So I'm fully supportive of that, and we will do everything possible to be as paperless as possible.
Thank you. Will the Center for Faculty Excellence be offering additional opportunities for professional development this summer, similar to last summer? And if so, when will this be announced?
Sorry, Brian, say that again, please.
Will the Center for Faculty Excellence be offering additional opportunities for professional development this summer, similar to last year? And if so, when will these opportunities be announced?
I know that the provost has received a proposal from the Center for Faculty Excellence. I am fully supportive of any support that our faculty need, any training that our faculty need. I know that the Center for Faculty Excellence has been this really fundamental, essential element that we've had that has really empowered our success during this time. So anything we can do for our faculty to be better prepared for fall 2021, I will fully support it. Provost Fu, please let us know your thoughts on that.
Thank you for that question. I agree that summer professional development for our faculty is crucially important. And what we did last summer significantly helped us with ensuring we teach online classes to the highest efficiency and effective to uphold the learning outcome and the success of our students. This coming summer, we are planning to do similar trainings or even at a larger scale because we are able, or we may be able, very likely we will be able to get help from the CARES funding, the CARES funding. And currently we received the finalized proposal for those summer trainings, and we were not able to do it earlier because we need to wait for the system agreement for faculty summer work and training. And we received that agreement from CFA just barely last week. And the plan is on schedule, and we should have these proposals approved just very briefly. And I anticipate that announcement and the training sign up will start in the next 1 or 2 weeks.
Thank you. And just for clarification, the memo from the Chancellor's office was related with CFA, and perhaps I misunderstood, Provost, but I thought you said CFE, and I just want to clarify that CFE, the Center for Faculty Excellence.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, thank you. All right, the next question, as an essential employee, it feels as though we are a small population that has been forgotten in the transition to campus going remote, and still forgotten in talks of repopulation. So certain unions have provided their employees with recognition and some emergency pay as part of their contracts, but other units did not. Is there a plan to recognize essential employees that have been and continue to be on campus since the beginning of the pandemic monetarily, some type of stipend?
Thank you, Brian, for that question. Vice President Asun, please, your thoughts on that.
Well, first of all, we, of course, in every opportunity we can, we are recognizing we've had many of our staff and colleagues who have been on campus the entire time, especially in our, I'll just call out our public safety and facilities areas. And, you know, there was a time when we had the, you know, shelter in place order where there was emergency pay that was provided to certain positions who needed to remain on campus. But that is a system-wide bargaining unit matter. And we deeply recognize and appreciate everything our staff have done, continue to do. And I know we try and take those opportunities as a leadership team to always recognize those efforts. But at this time, there's no that I'm aware of, other than the additional leave that was approved for some of the bargaining units through the Chancellor's Office system-wide bargaining effort, additional leave that Chancellor Castro has approved for COVID-related reasons, which is a benefit. And I also think too, I know our managers and supervisors have, I think, tried to accommodate and work with our colleagues who have been here the entire time when the issues or needs have arisen. And we'll do our very best to support our staff. But at this time, there are no, as far as I know, system-wide plans or anything at the bargaining table in regards to any additional monetary compensation. But it does not mean that we don't appreciate the effort and recognize the effort.
Thank you very much. With that, there are several unanswered questions, and I certainly appreciate the engagement of all of the individuals who are present in this forum. I also would like to acknowledge the Office of the President who set all this up, Eric West, our sign language interpreters, our closed caption individual who's captioning all of this. I'm so thankful. Thank you for making this inclusive and inviting. I'm going to now also recognize that tomorrow is Administrative Professionals Day. To Vice President Astone's point, it is a community at Fresno State. I've been very fortunate to be here for 23 years as a lecturer, as a faculty, and currently in my role here in the Center for Faculty Excellence. So very grateful for the relationships that we have and our ongoing commitment to our students and their success. And with that, I would like to turn it back over to our president for some closing remarks, and perhaps he would even invite some panelists, our cabinet members, for some closing remarks. President, we have about 5 minutes left.
Sure, I'd like to invite Terry Toomey to give us a sense of where we are as far as our athletics is concerned in the fall 2021. Terry, please.
Thank you so much, President, and thank you to our community and our staff and faculty for your support during these times. Our student athletes are flourishing because of your support and leadership and your contributions to the university and their learning experience. Spring has been great for us in the fact that we've been able to embrace some of the new landscape to protect our community and be able to employ that. And hopefully we'll take those lessons that were learned and employ them in the fall for us to have a very productive and safe fall. So as we move forward, we feel here in athletics that we will operate at our highest level, of course, that within the confines and the constrictions of whatever the county allows us to and the state allows us to, in order to provide an athletic experience and really a university experience to all of our patrons. We feel very optimistic about fall and what it looks like, and we feel very optimistic about what should be coming for our students as they enjoy these experiences as well. So at this point in time, we've had a very successful spring. And I say success in the fact that our students are being allowed to do what they love to do. They're going to school, they're having a great academic experience, and they're able to compete athletically. And now we're allowing our community to be a part of that. So things are returning to a place that I would like to say is what I say is the new normal as we look forward to providing a new experience for these new Bulldogs as they come into our university. So thank you, President, for allowing me to address our community.
Thank you, Terry. And Dr. Kuhn, please, some of your thoughts as we move into fall
Yeah, thank
2021.
you, President. I would just share that we are just so eager and ready to have our colleagues and our students back on the campus. And that the energy and the pulse of the place just isn't the same. But I can also kind of assure you that our colleagues have been working very, very hard and very diligently to make this campus as safe as we possibly can. And with an emphasis on self-responsibility. We've heard that quite a bit, here this morning. And so we will urge people to continue to be diligent in that. And we're just ready to get everybody back and get back into the business of why we're really here.
Thank you, Dr. Kuhn. And Vice President Leon, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. This has been such a great conversation today, and I hope that more questions will come because there's a lot of information we're always happy to share. On the technology side, we're having a lot of exciting conversations with the whole campus community, with our students, with our faculty, with our staff, and with campus leadership. Please keep sending us that information. If you want to talk about anything technology related, we are here to support our entire campus community as much as possible as we look to repopulating for the fall semester. So lots going on with classrooms, with thinking about power needs for our students who are maybe sitting in the hallways, to where they're going to sit, to computer labs, to software and other technology aspects that will support our campus community. So thank you very much, and please feel free to reach out.
And I just want to end by saying, thank you to Brian again for doing what he does with this. He has a magic touch, the ability to really bring us together and really moderate in a very effective way. Thank you, Brian. I want to thank the cabinet first and foremost for being incredible leaders and for keeping it real with me. I'm always about that. I want to know what's happening, because once I know what's happening, we can then resolve any issues that are out there. If there are any issues that are unresolved, by all means, let me know about them. Let your vice presidents know, let the provost know, and we will for sure get on it and resolve any issues that are outstanding. With that, I also want to thank you. I want to thank all the faculty who have powered through this. I want to thank all the staff without whom we would not be able to do what we do at Fresno State. I have always said that. And I also want to thank you for keeping it, right and center for the student success that we're all here for. So thank you for that. And I hope you have a good week. And I hope that you enjoy the nice sunshine that we're getting here in Fresno. Thank you so much.